Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Scott Noakes, and this is the mini lecture for the excerpt from The 1001 Nights. In The 1001 Nights, we see an even more complicated set of interlocking stories than we saw with Boccaccio and with Chaucer. Here, the stories are tightly interwoven into this entire frame text, where you have the story of Scheherazade, who is trying to essentially put off her own death and save the people from Shahryar and his madness. Essentially what happened is Shahryar has become convinced that any wife that he has will be unfaithful to him. And so in order to protect himself from a woman's infidelity, what he does is, he marries a new woman every day, and after bedding her down, he then has her executed in the morning. So Scheherazade decides that the way to handle this is to tell him a story. And so she tells him a different story every night, 1001 nights, and each one is a cliffhanger. And he's so curious about what will happen next that he doesn't want to kill her. And in doing this, she is able to save her life. And as will come as no surprise to you, in the end of this, he is, after essentially 3 years of this, he is transformed and begins to see her as she is, and she is no longer, she is no longer having to protect her life all the time. The problem is that when he discovers that his wife has been cheating on him, he ceases to see women as people. Instead, he sees women as either the virgin or the whore. And this is a very common dichotomy in literature. We're going to see it again when we get to Othello later on. And the virgin is the idea of a woman who is greatly virtuous. The Virgin Mary, Eve, Wealthiel. Obviously, they are not always literally virgin, but often the good girl. And then there's the whore of Babylon, Lilith, or Grendel's mother. These are women who are highly sexualized and who are dangerous because of it. And so in essence, he sees any virgin as being safe. But once he has slept with them, he sees them as being the whore. And he's not able to see women really as people. They have to be one of these or the other. So what we see happening here is this very problem. Notice how many of the stories that we're looking at here have to do with people being transformed into animals. And essentially humanity is caught between the very powerful jinn and the animal world, and we are in the middle between those things. And in essence, this is part of what the problem is for Shahryar. He cannot see Scheherazade or other women as people. He sees them as either this threatening power or something which is on the level of an animal or the chattel that can just be killed off. And so notice also how many of the stories have a kind of powerful evil demon who is in essence trying to control a woman or sometimes a merchant or someone else. And think of how many of these early stories we see. There's a figure who's a lot like the king, and there's a girl figure, often a virtuous girl who can see things that other people cannot, who is a lot like Scheherazade. Also, notice how many of these stories have to do with the idea of buying back your life. One of the very first frame text stories we get is a story about a merchant who makes a demon angry, and he has to tell 3 different stories, and each story he earns back a third of his life and is able to have himself be spared. And so ultimately, 1001 Nights is about these various issues. It's about the power of storytelling to transform us. It's about the way that even a monster like Shahryar can be transformed by this into one of the noble heroes that we see here. It's about the ways in which we feel ourselves being caught between two worlds, the powerful world of capricious spiritual beings and the world of animals and how we could slide into the other world. And it's also about the way that often storytellers cannot see the difference between the virgin and the whore, and they do not see women as people, but rather as one of these two extremes. So let us look at our prompts for today. The first prompt is, The 1001 Nights is a series of interlocking tales. Pick one of the smaller tales and discuss how it affects our understanding of the broader frame story of Scheherazade. And the other prompt is, often the characters in 1001 Nights save themselves or get what they want through storytelling. Discuss the power of storytelling in the text.